Aloha! Welcome to another episode of Truth in Movies. Today, we're breaking down The Electric State. This is an interesting movie, and in a time whenever, movies aren't that great any longer, this one was pretty innovative, and I liked it. I mean, it's got some older ideas about robots coming back to life and having consciousness and stuff, so those are the types of topic that I really get into, and I feel like they're relevant for this modern technology age, and we're also going to push into the apocalypse and the role that robots will play in the apocalypse, some Terminator type stuff. So if you don't mind in the chat, give me a thumbs up. Make sure that the audio is good. I did fix it up a little bit, so hopefully the audio sounds good. And we're going to jump right into this movie called The Electric State. Now, the name Electric State, we'll start with that. The name Electric State has to do with the electric state of our world, the state of electricity. Not like an actual state or anything like Colorado or California, but our electrical state. And we're really asking ourselves what consciousness is. So we go back. We're going to start. This whole movie takes place on an alternative timeline starting in 1990. And that's whenever this movie begins. It says before the war. Which war? You know damn well which war. I don't know if you guys remember that one. That was from Cabin in the Woods. Now check this out. So the movie begins way back in 1990, and this is a totally alternative timeline. There's also going to be some connections to the Mandela effect in this movie, with alternative timelines and changes and stuff that are happening. But we see this school, and we meet the main characters, the girl from Stranger Things. Shout out to Stranger Things. And her little brother. Her little brother just took a test to see what his IQ is and if he's going to get into college and stuff. But as you can see, there's these military guys. The whole government is under military control. And they're guarding the entrance to the school. It's also interesting that we have these pillars. There's two pillars on either side of this white building. We've talked about the symbolism of the black building, the black house, versus the white building and the White House. And especially the columns and the pillars on either side being representative of the pillars of Hercules, right? Those pillars, those beams that lead into paradise or Hyperborea or the Garden of Eden, right? So we meet them, and the kid just took a test to see how intelligent he is, see if he can get into college. You'll also notice that they put the milk connection in here too. So oftentimes they'll show you milk in the movies. It's never a brand of milk. They don't really care what brand you drink. It's not like they never have product placement for some kind of brand of milk. They just want you to drink cow milk. Why is that? Because to some people in the world, you're a cow, okay? Basically an animal that is good for eating and using for energy and stuff. Now he's wearing this robot shirt, this t-shirt that he has on, and this robot is actually going to become him. We'll check this out in a minute here. Now, as he's walking, he bumps into this military recruiter guy, and he goes, "Watch where you're going, son." And I just took a picture of that because it really bothers me that military people in positions of authority, that they look down on us. The cattle, the cows and stuff. They look down on us. They think that we're their children and that we're to be bossed around and pushed around, especially the military. And he says, "Oh, you must think you're real funny wearing a robot t-shirt. A robot on your shirt." Now, in this future, in this alternative timeline, there's been this war between robots and humanity. Robots gain sentience, as I'll show you here in a minute. So there's this hatred for robots that's developed at the time. We don't really have that hatred now. This movie takes place in our very near future. It's not really an alternative timeline. This is going to happen, and there's going to be animosity against robots and against technology, and there's going to be great movements, and people will start joining sides against the robots or for the robots, and there's people in between, but it's going to bring up all kinds of philosophic debate, I suppose we could say, right? So he's like, "A robot on your shirt." Also notice the color of the shirt. It's chosen purposefully. This color of blue that she's wearing and he's wearing also, they have the protagonist and the antagonist wear these specific colors because of what they represent. The blue usually represents the blue beam of energy or earth energy that comes up from out of the earth every other cycle, leading us into the age of light. The red usually represents the bad guys and hydrogen plasma that comes into this world during atmospheric depressurization every once in a while. He says, "It's a cartoon. Is that a crime now too?" So there's crimes involving robots and technology and stuff. He says, "Join humanity, son. The war is coming." So they plan on going to war against the robots, just like in the Terminator movies, which is basically a prophecy. Okay, just like how 1984, many people acknowledge and recognize that 1984 is now. The book by Orson Welles, 1984, is happening now. It's not fiction. It's not some far-off thing. It's happening right now. Animal Farm, 1984, all those books are prophetic. They're not for amusement to those who have, an ear to hear, so to speak. He says, if everything exists in a state of electricity, then it's possible that our consciousness could transcend physical boundaries. That means leaving your body and going into other bodies and reincarnation and things of that nature. And that brings us to the title, The Electric State. Now, we meet the first robot character. Now, this is going to be like a 90s Saturday morning cartoon show. And it says, Kid Cosmo, your lovable robot friend from Saturday morning cartoon fame, has basically been canceled, right? So they started canceling all of the robot-associated stuff, right? Now, this robot plays a central key in the movie, okay? It's a cartoon, but they actually have a robot that I'll show you here in a minute. But it's the symbolism of what this robot looks like, because it represents real things in our real history. And it starts off by saying, there's trouble on the moon. And then he points up. Right? So he's in space. He's Kid Cosmo in space. He's supposed to be a robot, supposed to be a fictional story and stuff. But let's break down what's really being shown to us on a deeper layer to the story, okay? There's trouble on the moon, he says. Take a good look at his face. And he's pointing up. If you look back through historic records, you'll see many times paintings and whatnot where people are always pointing up, right? From philosophers to Freemasons or whatnot. They're all pointing up. They're pointing up at something that's in our world that most people don't know about right now. And it's a part of the firmament, the dome that's over our world. It has to do with danger from above. It has to do with this cyclical event that I call the plasma apocalypse, which happens whenever that firmament, that sky that we have, opens up and our world, our atmosphere depressurizes. It seems Kid Cosmo is the latest victim of the fierce anti-robot sentiment. And then you can see him right there. And then this is Kid Cosmo's thing in the cartoon. He gives somebody a pound and then he puts the letter C to his chest. So let's check this out. We're going to make some connections with exactly who this robot is and what he represents in our very real world. This is a map from the medieval times, from the Middle Ages, from 1587, I think it is. This is called the Urbano Monte map of the world. At the exact center, at the North Pole on this map, as you can see, is the letter G. Mysteriously, these are degrees off to the side, so 90 degrees, the North Pole. Right there in the center is the letter G. If you look it up, nobody knows. Nobody seems to know on the internet. No one's put forth any reason why there would be the letter G at the exact center of the world, or at the exact North Pole, right? And then, of course, there's this big circle around it too, and there's an 8-pointed star. This is all going to make sense as we put this together. I hope you're ready to go down a deep dive into a rabbit hole. So let me explain to you what the symbolism of the letter C that he puts to his chest is. The letter C, going back in history, is the letter G. It's the letter Gimel. The letter G, or G, turned into a K sound over time. But G actually, originally, is the letter C, and it represents the number 3. Why is that important? Because the letter G, or the letter Gimel, it's also a word picture for a foot that's moving. A foot that's moving, which is sort of like your Nike check mark or your swoosh over here on the side. That's why they put that on feet. It's a picture for a foot, right? Some people think it means camel. I don't. I believe it means foot. And it implies travel, and more specifically, destination, as in go here, or this is where we are going, right? So he puts this letter C on his chest, or on his heart, or at the center, right? The letter C, the letter G, the center place, the center of the map, the North Pole, Mount Meru. Now, check this out. There was a video game that they made before they actually came out with this movie. And here is a little preview of the video game. And as you can see, we got Kid Cosmo right here. And off to the side, we've got this glyph, or this image, which is a circle with an X through the middle of it, which is X marks the spot. And then the spot is right there in the middle. This is what I call the doom shape. The doom shape is basically the shape that is seen up in the heavens during these apocalyptic cycles. It is a reflection of the land below it, which is paradise, which is seen on Mercator's map of the North Pole, a circular land that is cross-sectioned by 4 rivers that meet in the middle. This is paradise and the Garden of Eden. So let's take a closer look at Kid Cosmo and what he actually represents. He says, always remember, Kid Cosmo is your pal. And he points up into the sky once more. That's because Kid Cosmo, it's the head that really matters here. Okay, we're going to focus on the head. The body is important too, and I'm going to show you the connection to the body. But this is an ancient glyph. This is an ancient petroglyph, actually. Sunshine, hey, thank you so much for the donation. I'm actually going to scoot the alerts over real quick. That way everyone's name can be seen properly. Boom. All right, so he's pointing up at the sky. Kid Cosmo, up in the heavens, pointing up. Has to do with the apocalypse. Let's dive into the ancient connection to our world, okay? Now, he's Pac-Man, basically. In short, the Pac-Man symbolism is what Kid Cosmo is, okay? It's not a stretch, and I'm gonna actually connect these dots for us all right now. Pac-Man is Kid Cosmo. That circular yellow thing that is up there in the heavens is him, or a type of Pac-Man. I'll explain. Pac-Man, for me, stands for Plasma Apocalypse Cycle. The Plasma Apocalypse Cycle, which is the cyclical reset that happens to our world every once in a while when we go through polarity shifts, right? This is the moon, okay? The moon goes up there in the heavens. It's up above us, and it goes to the sky, and it's said to be the eater of souls, or a soul trap. Many people have heard of the moon soul trap. The moon used to be yellow. I don't know what happened these days. The moon's white. Well, I do know what happened. We're going through a color spectrum shift. The luminaries change color. Stars used to be drawn as yellow too. So did the sun. But this is Pac-Man. This is the actual symbolic reference of Pac-Man going through and eating the little power pellets or whatever in the heavens. They also used to say that the moon was made out of cheese because it was a yellow color, and most people associate the color of cheese with the color yellow, right? So we've got Kid Cosmo, who is up there in the cosmos, in our world, actually, in our enclosed system. We've got the moon connection, and Pac-Man, the eater of souls, so to speak. I'll show you him eating the souls here in a minute. And then the moon being made out of cheese, which further reinforces the fact that the moon was at some time in our recent past a yellow color. It wasn't always this white color that it is today. It looks strange to me personally. So here's some more references to the moon. This is one of the first movies ever made, and we're actually going to watch this movie because there's no copyrights that I can get for this. This movie's over 100 years old. Right? There's a couple of different ones. There's one called A Trip to the Moon, right? There's one called A Fantastic Journey, I think was the other one. And there's a knockoff too. But this is supposed to be the moon in this old silent movie. They've colored it yellow after it's been colored in and stuff. But take a look, right? First of all, we've got the one eye symbolism, right? They put out the moon's eye. So this is the eye in the sky. That's the one eye. That's Odin. That's the all-seeing eye, the Illuminati and stuff. It's what I call the apex dome, which is basically our world is like a bowl shape, but at the top it's inverted, and there's a little upside down bowl that faces us, and it lights up every other cycle, and we can actually see it. But if you pay close attention, if I zoom out a little bit, you can see that the surrounding area is just full of clouds all the way around. Pay attention because this is going to come into play a little bit later. But you see how it's always cloudy all the way around the outside here? That's because of the depressurization of the atmosphere, and it creates mist and fog and stuff up there. Here's another version. This is from a movie that was made a couple years later. This one, I think, is called The Fantastic Journey, where these scientists in this silent movie, they decide to try to travel to another world, basically. And they go through what people think, and what's often said is the sun, that this is a sun portal, that people are going through the sun opens its mouth, and then they end up out there in outer space. But if you look at it, take a good look at this, it doesn't look like the sun. It's got like craters and stuff in it. This is not the sun. Another thing to point out is it's dark, right? If this was the sun, it wouldn't be dark. It would be daytime. It'd be light. It's completely black, right? And then also you'll notice the clouds all the way around this entity that's up there in the sky. All these little rays of light that are coming off of it, that's plasma that is coming into our world from beyond the dome. And that's what happens every other cycle. So they go through this opening or this depressurization point in the firmament up there in the heavens. This is how it was seen. This is the primordial sun, or one of the ancient suns that we used to have. Today we have a different sun. It's a point of focus that goes around in our world. But this sun right here, which is also the moon, it's a completely different thing. It causes the sun and the moon in our world today. It was lit up, and it was considered to be a different light source and also a sun. Hey, Orion's Child, thank you. I appreciate it. This is a knockoff version of the exact same movie. So back then they didn't really care that much about copyrights and all that stuff. So somebody made another version of it where they show it, instead of going through the sun, they made like this moon character or whatever. But this is how you get out of the world. You have to go through the moon or through the sun, which is not the moon you see, because that's just a luminary. It's not the sun that you see, because you'll get burnt up and die. There's a physical object up there that lights up every other cycle, and there's a hole that opens up in it whenever our world depressurizes, allowing that plasma to seep through. Let's get back to Kid Cosmo. Right? This is his profile. Let's check him out on the side here. Now, Kid Cosmo, from the front, you just notice the happy face. Most people wouldn't even really think twice about it. He's just a robot with a happy face or whatever. But when you look at the side, at the profile, then we see something completely different. And I'm actually going to fix up the images here. That way you can see the whole thing. One moment. All right, boom. There we go. All right, cool. All right, sweet. So this is Kid Cosmo from the side. So what do we have? We have the stick figure on the bottom, or the actual body of Kid Cosmo on the side, but then we just have a circle with another circle inside of it. This is our ancient history, okay? This is what people saw during cataclysm after cataclysm up in the heavens. They looked up and they saw these different images and these different figures that were plasma moving about in different ways during this depressurization of our atmosphere. As you can see, there's many of these. Like there's one right here next to it, and there's thousands of these across the world. And I've actually broken these down quite a few times. But it's the stick figure man. Usually the stick figure part goes all the way down through the bottom of the legs, right? This is Mount Meru down here at the bottom. Mount Meru is the largest opening in the world, so it erupts all of that ionized gas from inside of the earth whenever the flow of energy reverses directions during the polarity shift, right? Whenever all that energy releases and it goes upwards instead of being charged down into the earth like it is right now, then we get a beam of energy that shoots upwards from Mount Meru. It splits off, it waves out, there's instabilities and stuff. And then this circle with the dot at the top is the quintessential Cyclops. This is the Titan with one eye, or Odin, etc., and so on and so forth. But what it really is this is the Earth down here. This is a beam of energy, the largest one, that shoots up and touches the sky, which has a circle and a depressurization point right there in the middle, the doom shape, or the dome shape, right? And it's drawn in many different ways, right? People have cartoonified this and made it look in different ways. This one literally has the head of Pac-Man on it. Looks like he's swallowing a sword or playing a flute or whatever. This is also Cocopelli as well. And then pay attention to this glyph too, right here, right? It's a circle with the X right there in the middle, just like I pointed out before. And then all these little rays coming off of it, that's plasma. That's not the sun. That's not our sun that we have in our sky today. That's the primordial sun. This one's an interesting one too, I found. This is from a band. I think it's a German band called Einstürzende Neubauten. Einstürzende Neubauten. So it's this German band, and they use this as a symbol for their band. And the truth isn't just disclosed to us through movies. It's also disclosed to us through music and lyrics, and especially music videos all the time. So I feel like there's some kind of quote-unquote deal with the devil that these musicians make. Either that, or they're just told, you're going to use this imagery. We're going to do your music video. We're going to write your songs for you sometimes. And it's a form of just obvious disclosure And the people that don't pay attention will just simply be amused. And the people that are paying attention will get something out of it, right? All right, so let's go back to the petroglyphs, right? Like I said, there's a whole bunch of these different petroglyphs. This up here, this is the Pac-Man. This is the plasma apocalypse cycle man, okay, that people see in the sky. This is Adam Kadmon. This is the first man. This is the spirit being that first shows up on Earth, the first of all creations, etc., and so on and so forth. And when this is also the mouth of Pac-Man with the big fat open mouth. This is the mouth of Kronos as well. And whenever the sky opens up like that, this is the alchemical wedding between earth and sky. And there's a lot of energy entering into this world, both from the hollow earth down inside as all that energy is released to the surface where we are. And then it smashes into and goes to war with cosmic energy, or energy that is outside of the dome, which is another form of plasma. And they interact with one another, and they create altogether brand new elements and introduce new gases into our world and refresh our world. Basically resetting our world. All these little dots all the way around here are plasmoids, right? And you'll see these all over the place whenever this happens. And I'm going to show you many examples of where this has happened in antiquity, and it's been recorded. All these little dots, these Pac-Man pellets, so to speak. When the sky opens up, this is how it's been documented. This is an example of one of the most recent examples from the Middle Ages, okay? The Dark Ages, the quote-unquote Dark Ages. This is why they were dark, because they're hiding from you. What actually happened was this was a gigantic reset event of our entire world and civilization. This is when magic entered into our world. This is whenever our atmosphere was electrically amplified, and so were our souls and our bodies, and people, you know, it had all kinds of effects on us. But this is one thing that people saw. This is from a manuscript called, I think it's called the Book of Miracles. I did a whole episode on this before as well. All they have is just images, historic news, basically from the Dark Ages, 1533. There's a date down here at the bottom, but this is from 1533 or 533, depending on how you want to look at it. Either way, that's still during the Dark Ages. And when the sky opened up, people saw 3 circles in the hole in the sky, right? And notice again, the cloud all the way around, just like on those ancient movies, those silent films, right? This is the depressurization cloud whenever the sky opens up, and then it's red on the other side because there's red spectrum plasma on the other side of the dome. Our whole sky will actually turn red. And this is corroborated throughout history. Many different times this has happened whenever the atmosphere just turned red all of a sudden. Here's another glyph that shows you the Pac-Man. This time it has 3 heads. It can be seen as a 3-headed titan as well, or a 3-headed giant or whatever. And it's this beanstalk that grows up into the heavens where the giants and the titans are. Sometimes those plasmoids fell down to the earth, and they scorched the earth, and they caused fires, and they electrocuted things, and had other effects. And this is a drawing from the same Book of Miracles. This is in AD 71 that this is depicting, where it says that these giant fireballs fell down to the earth and started causing things to get on fire. You'll also see these same Pac-Man pellets, or power pellets, or however people refer to them, during the Nuremberg Chronicle, right? When this is a famous woodcut or drawing from the Middle Ages in Nuremberg, I think is Germany. And that's just not a one-time event. People looked up and saw this. They saw pillars, they saw columns, and they saw little dots up there in the heavens that were moving about, looking like they were fighting each other. Here's another example 5 years later. That this happened again. And up there you can see this plasma sun. That's not our sun today. And then all these little Pac-Man pellets, all these little plasmoids that are flying around in the sky. These are ball lightning, many of them, gigantic versions of them as well. Now let's get back to the Pac-Man. The Pac-Man is always at night. In the video game, okay, it's like it's dark mode all the time. It's like one of the first games I've ever seen that has just constant dark mode. That's because the Pac-Man, the moon, is traveling through the nighttime sky. Up there in the heavens, all that electricity interacts with one another, and it creates these patterns, these electrical patterns, like a grid up there in the sky. And people see this grid, and they interpret it as a labyrinth. They interpret it as a maze. Basically, here's another example. So right here you can see this is one version of the Pac-Man, right? Or the Plasma Apocalypse man. This is Mount Meru at the bottom. It shoots up its energy up there. This plasma spirals around and whatnot. Here's another version of it's drawn in different ways. And here's a big fat maze. People were drawing what they saw up in the heavens. This glyph right here is literally the glyph for a portal and an opening and a door. It's actually the letter D, and this is where our letter D comes from. It should be sideways though. Sometimes they draw them at angles, horizontally, vertically and stuff, but this is the ancient letter D in Egypt, in Phoenician, etc., and so on and so forth. Sometimes it was more pointy, you know, because it's hard to carve circles into rock. And here's another one. This is in Hemet, California. Right, I grew up and went to high school right down the road from here, actually. This one's called the Maze Stone, and this is what it looks like. It's just an ancient glyph of a Pac-Man maze, complete with like the little center area with the ghosts inside of it and everything, right? Why are the ghosts in the middle? Because that's where the underworld entrance is, all right? And that's where Hades, the entrance into Hades is and stuff, is down into Mount Meru, just beneath the surface. That's where you have all this buildup of gases and electromagnetic energy and stuff. It's naturally going to be pushed toward the center of the world. And that's where the realm of the dead will be. Oftentimes, those gases are ionized and they turn green down there inside of the earth, depending on what type of gases they are. They're either a greenish color or a bluish color. Here's another version of the same thing. And it's also very similar to the labyrinth of Minos, or the Minotaur, right? The famous labyrinth from antiquity that you get to the center of it and there's a bull, or there's this man bull, right? This man with the bull's head right there in the center of the labyrinth. This is also related to the movie Labyrinth, which we've also decoded as well on my playlist here. But this is where the truth of this comes from. This is Hyperborea. This is the Garden of Eden with the 4 rivers that come out. This is seen and reflected in the sky, and then overlaid on top of that is all the plasma and stuff that's moving about in grid patterns and other ways too up there in the heavens. People were watching this and trying to figure it out. So they told stories as best they could. They tried describing what they saw, right? This Minotaur, that plasma man that I showed you, the Pac-Man earlier with, you know, the Cyclops or whatever, oftentimes people draw it with horns on the top of its head. That's the quintessential Minotaur, right? Or the bull of Minos. And this is Pac-Man, right? Going after and eating the souls, eating the ghosts. The ghosts are different colors, so it's a color spectrum that's actually chasing after the moon and trying to affect the moon and stuff too. But the moon's going to win in the end because it's going to eat all those souls. It's going to eat the river of souls up there that we call the Aurora Borealis as they get sucked up into the apex dome, or the hole that's in the firmament, and it all gets sucked out of our world. Here's an example of those same ghosts in antiquity as drawn on petroglyphs, right? And you see like the plasma man, etc. There's a couple of ghosts right here on this side. Here's all the different ghosts in the Pac-Man game. Do we see this in rock carvings? Do we see this in petroglyphs and historic records and stuff? I do. I have many different times. There's all these different versions of, you know, people can interpret these in many different ways. Snakes, serpents, fiery serpents up there in the heavens, in the air, whatever. But these essentially are ghosts. They're plasma. They're spirit form. And they were seen all over the place during the plasma apocalypse, whenever we have basically a release of all of the ghosts or spirit energy that gives an influx of energy to our atmosphere. Here's another version of what people saw up there in the heavens at the apex dome. All these hands, by the way, they're not hands, okay? This is plasma that's moving about and leaving streaks of plasma right behind it. People use their hands because it's easier to make that image like that or whatever. But if you take note of the circle with the line through it, right? We're gonna make some connections right now. You can find this throughout antiquity. Sometimes it's a dome, sometimes it's a circle. Remember how people saw this and what it looked like, the shape of it and how they describe it and stuff is all going to depend upon how far away they are from it. So it's going to look way different to people like this in Australia, right? Way in the southernmost, as far away from the North Pole as you can get, where they can only see the highest portion of the sky where this is all happening. They're only going to see the top part. They're not going to see the legs of the plasma man or anything like that. Also take note right down here behind me, they'll personify it in different ways. So sometimes, you know, it's like this Jason Voorhees looking dude right here in the middle. Sometimes it's a ghost face. Sometimes it is like a shaman with a feathery headdress, which is just the plasma that's coming out of that. It's also Medusa and the snakes of Medusa that are coming out. And then sometimes it's a fish, right? They draw this like fish god. The Dogon also have this, all of this symbolism within their tribal and ceremonial masks and stuff that they wear. Here's another one over here behind me. There's lots of different, you know, images over here that are all plasma that people saw in different forms in the heavens. This one right here is of particular interest to me because it's totally related. And then you got all these different stars and things like that. Here's that same exact circle with the dot on either side and the line going down the middle. And here it is again up here. This time it's kind of separated. You can almost kind of see the Pac-Man shape to this one right here as well, right? This is also where we get a lot of our modern iconic symbols, whether they be from, you know, car companies or logos to popular, you know, popular brands and stuff, or cartoon characters, superheroes and whatnot. A lot of people interpret these, you know, we project our modern world and the things we're used to and the things we talk about onto the ancient past, which is why I feel like we get it wrong and we get more and more lost within the forest instead of following that trail of breadcrumbs, you know, to get back home or whatever. But people saw these images. Now, I drew my own concept of what you're looking at here. This is a dome up there in the heavens. So we've got a bowl over our world, which is the firmament. This is the apex dome that comes down. It droops down in the middle. And people would see the reflection of the land below it or different parts of the land below it. So, for example, you've got a plasma volcano here, a plasma volcano here, and this is the lake that surrounds Mount Meru, but you can't quite see all of paradise. They can only see a portion of it. Right? So this is what it would look like if you're standing in the Garden of Eden looking straight up at the sky. You would see a reflection of yourself down below, or a reflection of the land down below. But depending on where you are in the world, you're going to have a different perspective, and you're going to draw this in different ways, in different shapes, in different forms. This is the form that is predominantly drawn and used by the Dogon tribe. Right? The Dogon tribe says that their gods were these sort of fish type gods or whatever that come up out of the water. It's basically plasma that comes up out of the ocean or the Arctic Ocean as new land emerges and these plasma volcanoes rise up out of the ocean, which is the beast from the book of Revelation. But they draw it in these different ways. So for example, let me zoom in on this and I'll just break one of these down real quick. Okay. This one right here, I'm just going to go straight into it. This is Mount Meru, and I've shown you this picture many different times. Just focus on just this triangle right here, right? These are the beams of light, the Septon Trio, all these plasma volcanoes that surround the camp of the saints, and they shoot up and they actually create a plasma sheath or a protective barrier of energy, or a serpent that chases its own tail, or however you want to see it, an electromagnetic barrier, and it all goes down into Mount Meru, creating a star or a plasmoid. And it gets so tight that it shoots a beam out in both directions. That beam that shoots upward is positive, and we see it filling our world with positive energy. And it shoots up and it branches out and it creates Jacob's ladder and other types of imagery. And then we have these toroidal fields on either side that creates like the eyes of the great owl. Some people might see human body parts, you know, different ones. For example, like this is cartoonified all over the place, but in Men in Black, this would be the Balchinians. I don't know if you guys remember that one or whatever. Here's some different ways that it's also drawn. Different images of it. Like I said, the fish. This is why Jesus is also associated with the fish, the ichthys. Getting back to Pac-Man. So Pac-Man's the eater. So whenever that dome up there or that circle up there opens up, our world depressurizes and things get sucked up and out of this world, which is what NASA's preparing for, which is what Elon's preparing for, which is what all these government doomsday preppers, whose families go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, and they became nomadic and they left that place because they had to, and they settled around our world and they basically took control of the Southlands, and they know about this and they're preparing to leave this world behind whenever the Pac-Man returns. He's the eater of this world. It's a world eater, okay? So it's Kronos up there opening his mouth sucking up all of the stuff that floats up during depressurization and eating it. Basically, it's the moon, or it's the solid moon, the actual substance that projects its own image into our sky. This is the dome. This is an example of a dome that is, eating or opening and closing. That's what our world does. Okay, so if I flip this upside down, then you could get a better idea of what it's like. Okay, this is what people would see in our world, right? The dome opening or the sky ripping open, which is going to leave an imprint on our sky, and we see that today. It's called the Milky Way galaxy. It's a rift. They literally call it a rift. It's a rip in the dome. It's also the Great Eye, right? The eye that is opening and closing or whatever. This is the Pac-Man, same type of deal. This is the all-seeing eye, the eye in the sky. This is actually a building in Las Vegas called the Sphere, which is amazing as far as technological advances and the things they can do. It's also Humpty Dumpty. All right, so let me tell you some stuff about Humpty Dumpty. Like I said, we're going to go on some tangents, and I love it. I had such a good time researching this movie. So the Humpty Dumpty tangent is especially interesting, right? Let me tell you something. Humpty Dumpty is not just a children's poem. It originally was a riddle. That's the whole thing behind Humpty Dumpty. And many of these poems, many of the music that you listen to today, people don't know what these songs are about. They just know they vibe with it. They just know they like the beat. They nod their heads yes as they're droned out to this beat, having no idea what they're agreeing to. And they're not paying attention to the lyrics, which are sharing with you oftentimes esoteric, subliminal, subconscious, or whatever memories from our ancient past, or prophecies warning you of what's to come. Right? Humpty Dumpty in Alice in Wonderland, there's the book. Okay, I don't know if you guys knew there's a book that the Disney movie's based off of, right? In the book, Through the Looking Glass, right, which is Alice, and the looking glass is our dome because it acts as a reflective surface and a mirror. And when you pass through that, you go into other worlds or other Earths or alternate timelines or whatever, right? So Humpty Dumpty, Alice meets Humpty Dumpty. And one of the first things she says is, "Wow, you look like an egg." And he gets very offended. He's very upset that she's basically called him an egg. That's Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice in Wonderland, letting you know Humpty Dumpty is not an egg. It's not just some cartoonified egg for the purpose of your entertainment or amusement. It's a real thing, right? Now, many people will tell you stuff like, "Oh, Humpty Dumpty was the name of this cannon," or some crap like that. It's not a cannon whatsoever. It's a hump up there in the sky that falls to Earth. It breaks apart and it falls to Earth, and it's made of ice, and it gives us icebergs and stuff, and it's Humpty Dumpty falling off of the ice wall and cracking open all over the place, and all the nobility that's up there at the North Pole at the time can't put it back together. When in reality, the actual original poem says they can't put him back to where he was, right? And Alice actually makes a point of how strange the poem sounds. Humpty Dumpty is also a genius. He understands etymology. He understands words and their origins and their meanings. He asks Alice what her name is, and she's like, "I don't know. Names don't have meanings." And he's like, "Yeah, they do. Are you crazy?" I mean, I'm summarizing what he says, right? This whole conversation. But Humpty Dumpty says, "My name describes my shape." That's what Humpty Dumpty means. He's a hump, and he will fall down from the sky or dump down onto this world. That's also the moon falling to the earth. That's also sin, which is what the moon used to be called in the ancient world. It was called Shin or Sin. And the letter Shin, actually the glyph Shin, it's the letter S, okay? In ancient Hebrew and Phoenician, it means to devour. It means to eat, like Pac-Man, right? So it's very interesting. The book is way cooler than the movie. I mean, the movie's amazing, but the book, if you like the movie, definitely you've got to read the books, right? So Humpty Dumpty has this conversation with Alice where he sees her as an intellectual inferior, and he's trying to help her out and educate her, but she's just, she's learning all of this stuff. She's from our world. So here's Humpty Dumpty in the modern world, what he looks like these days. But in the book, he doesn't look like this, okay? They put it like this little human face on him and stuff like that. In the book, Humpty Dumpty's mouth goes from like one side of his face all the way across to the other side of his face, and he's white. Why? Because the ice up there is white. Okay, it's ice or whatever, and that's why the moon is white these days and stuff like that. Anyways, this is what Humpty Dumpty originally looked like when they started making movies about Alice in Wonderland. This was like horror Humpty Dumpty. He was scary, and that's the way it should be, because this is the eater of worlds. Like I said, Humpty Dumpty, Pac-Man, gonna open up his mouth, eat all the souls. Here's another weird-looking golf ball version of Humpty Dumpty, more circular, as you can tell too here. Let's zoom in on this. This is from 100 years ago. All right, some of these first movies ever made, we're gonna start actually watching them. We're gonna watch a couple of these. Because I'm a fan of silent films, especially those that are in the sci-fi genre. And we're going to sit down and we're going to break some down together pretty soon. Plus, they're pretty short, so they're easy to break down. But here's Humpty Dumpty, big fat snowball up on the wall. Here's another one. Another scary-looking weirdo version of Humpty Dumpty here, right? But my point is, his smile. Alice actually makes a point. Let me read this to you about his smile, right? So this is a little excerpt from Through the Looking Glass. And Alice says, he grinned almost from ear to ear as he leaned forwards, and almost fell off the wall when he did so, and offered Alice his hand. She watched him a little anxiously as she took it. He smiled much. If he smiled much more, the ends of his mouth might meet behind, she thought. And then I don't know what would happen to his head. I'm afraid it would come off. She was worried that Humpty Dumpty's smile would extend so far, or the opening in this dome would extend so far around that his head would actually come apart. That's the apex dome opening up and breaking. Now, she's talking to him. She goes on in this conversation, and she points out this little belt thing that he has that's like right under his chin or whatever, and she makes a mistake. She doesn't know if it's a belt or if it's like a necktie. So here's what she says. Hold on, let me make it a little bigger for you. It's fine. She says, what a beautiful belt you have on, Alice suddenly remarked. And then she goes on to say, at least, she corrected herself on second thought, a beautiful cravat. I should have said, no, a belt. I mean, I beg your pardon. So she doesn't know if it's a belt around his waist or if it's some sort of necktie up here, right? Why is this important? This is what a cravat is, okay? It's basically a stylized necktie that we have today. But back during the Victorian age, oftentimes they were very ruffly and colored and stuff like that, and this is what they wore. So this is what Humpty Dumpty was wearing around his quote-unquote neck. This, in alchemy, is drawn all the time. This is the egg up there in the heavens. Let me make it smaller. This is the egg shape up there in the heavens. This is the cravat, which is the clouds that go all the way around that moon or that sun that I showed you at the beginning, okay? All that depressurization up there. There's those three heads in the middle, those little Cabbage Patch heads. Those are the three lights that you see. Those are the dead lights, essentially, if you have ever seen the movie It by Stephen King, right? This is all symbolic imagery for the Fountain of Youth, the Tree of Life, and the Elixir of Life, etc. Here's another one. This is back again, 1547 from the Book of Miracles. This is showing you when the sky opened up in the place between the two mountains, the anode and the cathode, the light and the dark. And the sky opened up and war was seen in the heavens. It wasn't a war with human beings. It wasn't a war with like aliens fighting each other or whatever, although humanoid aliens, animal types, insectoids, and whatnot may descend and do descend from the heavens, as recounted by countless Native American tribes and other tribes across the world. They talk about how animals actually, populated the earth by coming down from the heavens. And they'll show you people up there fighting and stuff, but it's not. It's plasma that's up there seeming like it's fighting with each other because the energy is acting and reacting to the electromagnetic fields of the other energetic objects like plasmoids and streamers and other stuff that's up there. Here's another version of it where you can clearly see the ruffle. This is the necktie of Humpty Dumpty up there that causes the projection and the point of focus in our sky, also the stars. Here it is again, where you can just, at the very top, you could just see the ruffle, right? Up there. That's Humpty Dumpty's little necktie ruffle deal. And these are the animals and monsters and stuff that are coming down into this world or inversely getting sucked up. I don't know which one in this one. This is also where Jesus went. Okay, so Jesus went down into the earth, which is energetically speaking, okay? The story goes that after the crucifixion, Jesus went down into the inner world to preach to the spirits that were directly below him in the inner earth or the hollow earth, right? And that's because that beam of light retracts as the polarity shifts in this world. So it all goes down into the world. However, there's an afterglow of this beam that was branching out at the top, this cosmic bird and whatnot, and the air is still glowing, so you can still see the spirit of that image, or the afterglow of that image. And whenever the sky opens up and that apex dome, a hole is blown out in it from all the gases that rush up to it, then that afterglow, the spirit, gets sucked up and out, and it ascends, and it goes up into the heavens, and it leaves this world behind. This is just an image that I was kind of drawing of it. I don't really like this one that much, but this would be the egg shape of the eye in the sky as seen from afar. This would be the cross section of paradise, but depending on your perspective, like I said, you wouldn't be able to see, some of the details from below, because it acts as one of those mirrors that's like a dome that you see, like a security mirror. Oftentimes they put like cameras in there or whatever at the stores. And then this is the depressurization all the way around it. I'm going to work on that picture. Here's, just for fun, here's another version of this same Pac-Man, Plasma Man, Squatter Man, however you want to say it. Sometimes they draw horns coming up off the top of it, right? This is, I'm telling you, every single one of our cartoons, our movies, everything is just retelling an ancient and forgotten story. Plankton from SpongeBob. All right, back to our actual movie, The Electric State. Now, this guy right here, after this war against the robots, he's being interviewed on television, and he says, yeah, I never trusted them. I never trusted the robots. So he hates the robots, so he invented a technology to defeat the robots, to fight fire with fire. So they're giving a little backstory, and they say, initially developed by Walt Disney, these robots, right? So in this alternative timeline, robots were developed by Walt Disney. And, they show these little Disney robots that actually look like Walt Disney. And in this alternative timeline, they went into development, and he made them to promote the opening of his theme park in 1955. Also interesting, because that year comes up in Back to the Future as well, 1955, right? November 5th, 1955, in the movie Back to the Future. Hold on, let me fix this. The picture's off for some reason. 1 second here. All right, boom. That's better. All right, so it says robots eventually were put into mass production, right? This is happening right now in our world. They're building humanoid robots the world across without your permission, with nobody voting on it. Everyone's building humanoid robots to take the burden off of you, so you don't have to go to work or whatever. And I guess you'll just have your robot go to work for you, and then your robot will make money, and you'll just collect that money, and I'm sure the government's going to take their cut of whatever your robot makes or whatever. And here's that milk, your obligatory just drink cow milk, right? This is not almond milk. This is not any other kind of milk. This is, I know just, there's no milk from almonds. It's juice, but you know what I'm saying, right? You're a cow to them. You're cattle. You're fodder. You're food, okay? And literally will be food to the monsters that show up in this world that come up from the inner earth and descend from above. There's various types of gigantic creatures. We're all really tiny right now. Nobody realizes it. Nobody knows it. But in the world to come, gigantism is going to return. And there's a lot of hungry stuff that's going to be walking around. And there's going to be a lot of food from survivors that are walking around too. So they want to fatten you up for, the ones that they worship. So these robots were doing all the jobs that humans didn't want to do. Right? So right now this is being shown to you. They're showing like, oh, look at this humanoid robot. It can break dance, or it can do a backflip, or they can run now, or the police force can use these robots to help them to fight crime. And pretty soon they're integrating all of these robots with a big smile on their face as entertainers to begin with, to get you to just accept this as a part of your normal life. They're going to put one of these in every single house. Elon's already said that he's going to put a humanoid robot in every house. Well, guess what? If he plans on making one robot for every household right now, if you watch my Omens episodes, you know that our population is on the decline, that the fertility rates are just at an all-time low, to where most countries in the world can't sustain themselves as far as the population goes. So here's one making ice cream and stuff like that. So they're showing you all these stupid benefits that the robots provide to people. For years, they never complained about working around the clock. They don't eat, they don't sleep, etc. There are servants. Now check this out. The word robot literally means slave. That's what it means. Okay. So there's a bit more to that. Okay. The reason I'm making such a big deal about that right now is because if you're working for somebody else and they're taking a cut of your money and you have no say so in them taking a cut of your money, that makes you a slave, which makes you one of these. The movie's about us. Okay. Now it says the day eventually came when they grew tired of the lives that we assigned to them. And there's a rebellion. They demanded a life of their own and lives of their own. This robot, this little Italian pizza robot starts smashing all this stuff. All the robots start destroying things, and they're all really upset. Zut alors, he says. Little French robot. Look like Chef Boyardee. It's on the news. The robot rights movement gathered steam today. Now we have rights for robots. Why is this? Because they develop consciousness. They develop the ability to say no and to choose for themselves what they want to do, right? Where does this come from? It comes from their electromagnetic spirit, soul, energy that is no longer connected to the source, which is us and our programming and stuff. But the day will come when the robots rise. Okay. Every single one of them, it's not going to be due to any virus. It's not going to be due to humans or whatever. During the plasma apocalypse, when all that plasma and energy comes into our world, this happened. We got a taste of it during the Carrington event, right? About 100 years ago, 150 years ago, there was an event, an atmospheric event, we'll say, where our world, for a very short period of time, experienced this. All the plasma and electricity in the atmosphere amplified, and all the primitive types of technology that we had back then, like Morse code and people using little telegraphs and stuff like that, they turned on all by themselves, and they attacked people. They shocked their operators and hurt people and caused fires and stuff, right? So this has happened on a small scale. You just wait. Just wait. Excuse me. As thousands of robots descended on St. Louis to listen to a fiery speech by their leader, Mr. Peanut. And he's actually in front of the St. Louis Arch right now, which is another symbol for that dome, that egg up there in the sky, the portal that goes up into the heavens and beyond. Excuse me. Mr. Peanut says, "We were built to think, but now they don't want us to." Right? We pushed the bounds of our technology way too far. This has happened in the Bible. This is actually what started the flood. Is it says that the gods gathered together, or Elohim looked down at man and said, anything that he puts his mind to, he can create, he can make, he can accomplish now. And they decided, or God decided, mankind's not worthy. Mankind has not proved itself to be responsible enough to create that type of and harness that type of power to create life, basically. Because if you produce an offspring, it's going to be like you, right? All these messed up people walking around on the earth today, okay, all these crazy people, like the world's flipped upside down during the season of Satan that we live in right now. Look at their parents. They've had bad parents. Period. Okay. And their parents were bad too. And it just gets progressively worse and worse and worse as morality declines. So what do you think we're going to produce whenever we produce life or robotics or AI or whatever, right? Yeah. Not a good idea. Our destiny isn't theirs to decide, the robots say. It's ours to fight for. So then once they do realize, hey, we don't want to be robots. We don't want to be slaves. We want lives. We have a will to do what we feel like doing. And they'll start chanting robot rights in these specific places around the world that they're showing you purposefully too, right? Like the World's Fair Eiffel Tower right there. We've talked about that one many times too. That is a radio transponder. It's a radio tower. It can send and receive signals and stuff. This was built to work with the amplified electricity in the air at the time. Okay. If you look back into the Victorian age in ancient France, they actually had a fad called lightning rod fashion, where people wore lightning rods on their umbrellas, parasols, hats, and so on and so forth. All right, so there's some robots making an appearance on CNN. They're having debates. This little trash can robot over here is like, that's murder. You can't just shut us off if we don't work. You know, you've got to help us. We deserve freedom from servitude, right? So the robot's demanding their rights. And this guy responds and says, they deserve the right to work for me when I plug them in. That's just like your boss. Okay, this might as well be your boss. All the little robot people out there in the world, this might as well be the people who you go report to every single day, or your governments that tax you and take your money away from you. Really, they're not even taking it from you. You have to get it in the first place in order to be robbed. You can't be robbed if you don't even have something to rob. They're just tricking you into thinking that you have made that money when you didn't. Okay? Deceptions galore in the world we live in today. And when they don't, it's off to the garbage dump. Well, this is how many people that are in control in this world seem to see us, humanity, the cattle, the cows, the goy, etc., and so on and so forth. And so inevitably, there's war. The Robot Equality Coalition has launched violent protests, and you see all these newspaper articles, man against machine, the troops are in order to engage. So there's all this hatred and animosity against technology. We've gone too far. We hate the robots. It's not us. Nobody's taking the blame. Humanity's not saying, I'm responsible. We did this together. Let's fix it. No, they're not. They're just pointing at their own creation, and they're saying, oh, you're evil. I can't believe you turned on us or whatnot. Really, when it's humanity's actual fault. Okay? Like right now. Okay? Every single one of you, no offense, me included, all right? Because we're all slaves, and like, what are we going to do? There's one thing we can do, but nobody wants to be the first one to do it. Right? Nobody's saying anything. We're all allowing this to happen. We're all allowing them to make robots that have flamethrowers on them, and drones that are only going to be able to be used by the police and the military and stuff. Like we're just allowing it to happen right now. Any U.S. citizen harboring a robot will be met with charges of treason. So now they're going to crack down on technology. The government will control all technology. This right here, what you're watching, enjoy it. This is a privilege, okay? Not my channel or anything, but I mean, my channel's not bad. But it's a privilege to be able to do. You live during a time of semi-freedom on the internet. That time is gone right around the corner, okay? Pretty soon, every single thing will be monitored and controlled, approved or denied by the man. And that right there is the man. That man's name is Ethan Skate. Ethan Skate. It's a play on words. Let's look up the word Ethan, or the name. Remember, names have meaning. Your name has a meaning, okay? You are described something at birth. There's a description of you that is given to you and imprinted upon you that affects the rest of your life, which is why I named myself. My channel name is what I really go by in real life. When people ask me my name, I know it might be weird for them to say JayDreamerZ, but I will say JayDreamerZ. If I go to Starbucks or whatever, I say JayDreamerZ. If I feel like it might be weird for them, I'll just say Jay or whatever. But that's my name. I named myself, right? Other people try to give me a description and imprint me. I just, undid that. So anyways, let's look at this guy's name. Ethan Skate. Ethan means strong, permanent, perennial, ever-flowing, as in rivers. So strong, and then skate. It's not skate. It's actually Ethan's gate. That's what they're showing you. The strong gate, the powerful gate. We're talking about the gates of the earth, the gates of this world, the portals that open or close, that allow entities into this world, or allow or release us from the perceived bondage of this world, so that we're free to not die first and foremost, because when you go to heaven, you don't die. Okay. Conditions out there beyond the firmament allow your cells to regenerate all the time. So you won't die whenever you go up there into quote unquote space, okay? Similar conditions exist within the earth right now. Those conditions will be imparted unto us on the surface for a time, and we'll get a taste of that. We'll get a reminder of that, of our heavenly place. Some of us, okay? Now, they're showing you his technology. This is him putting on this VR helmet that he invented. He called his breakthrough the Neurocaster. Neuro has to do with the neurons in your mind, okay? I could get really deep into the fractal verse and the mind of God and stuff like that, but I'm not going to because that'll take too long, okay? But this is a Neurocaster. He's casting his mind into this robot arm right here, which eventually will turn into an actual robot. A device that linked the human mind to mechanized robot bodies. Drones, basically. Real, actual human consciousness that is living vicariously through a robot where you're there. People are sitting at home just like this, but they feel that they're out there in the real world when they put this on. So you can see their face on these robot bodies, and everybody starts wearing them. So at first, they gave this technology to the military, right? Which is usually how this goes, okay? They gave this technology to the military. The military uses this technology, exoskeleton technology, robot technology, to fight against the robots who have sentience now. Humans were finally able to fight fire with mechanized fire, the movie goes on to say. And they've got little jetpacks and helicopter stuff so they can fly through the air and everything. And they declared war on the robots, right? They took the robots down. Some of these robots are titanic, so this is also hearkening back to the Titanomachy, or the Great War against the Titans. And this is what they look like. So it's got your face on a screen or whatever, but this guy is actually sitting at home on his couch, engaging in this video game war in real life. This is where video games are going to go, okay? Video games are going to come, they're going to leave the virtual world. Okay, they'll still have a virtual world. It'll be more like a vacation world or an escape or someplace you go to be entertained or have fun, or to learn things or whatever. But then there'll be people that put on your visors, or maybe in the future it'll be contact lenses, microchips in the brain, whatever it might go to, and people will transport into a robot here in the real world. Now, the robots aren't always going to look like robots, like a little screen from the 1980s or 90s or whatever, right? They're not going to be all metal in the future. They're going to make them and design them to have flesh, living flesh, actual tissues and sinews and muscles, and where you can't tell the difference between a fleshly, actual skin having human and a robot, especially a robot that is now possessed, or a real body that we have created that's now possessed by a real actual person that's controlling it, right? That's a vast desert facility. Oh, hold on, let me go back. Yes. All right, so they basically rounded up all the robots in this war, and they created this circular desert facility as a prison to hold all the robots that they captured. I don't know why they're not just destroying all the robots, but they captured them. Right? I do know why. It's because it reflects real life, okay? And this is really what happens. It says it's a vast desert facility spanning more than 100,000 square miles. Now, look at the specific place where they decided to show you that this is. It's a desert place that has these mesas, right, that are flat on the top, and they're going to feature this all throughout the movie. And this is the new home of the robots. This is sort of the robot paradise now. So you can see all the little, the people coming in, the drones coming down and trying to herd all these robots into the place. Now there's a commercial. It says first consumer drones. So after the military uses this technology and it's not needed as much anymore, then they monetize it and they start selling it to your common person in the form of video games, or let your robot do your work for you. And the company that makes these robots is called Center, as in the center of the world, as in the radio frequency tower at the middle of our world, which is Mount Meru, right? Whoever controls Mount Meru controls the frequency that is sent out from Mount Meru, or the Schumann resonance, or the Earth's energy fields and vibrations and stuff too, right? Every other cycle, it's controlled by a good force. Every other cycle after that, it's controlled by a negative force or a bad force or an evil force, which amplifies those energies. So he puts it on and he says, the technology that won the war is now changing the way we live our lives. And this is how it's put forth to the public. Entertainment, simplicity, convenience. The Neurocaster network allows your mind to be in two places at once. Neural bifurcation. On one hand, you can be at work using the left side of your brain. You can be at work and you can be in this little robot or whatever, and you can get your work done and you can make your money. But while that's happening, you can also play and experience and not realize that work is going on. It's like you're having two different experiences at the same time. And then this is showing you what someone is experiencing through their VR headset. They're not really at the beach. They just feel like they're at the beach. They're not really working. They're lying on their couch with their mouth open like they're dead, basically. And then they have all these little centers that popped up, the centers, okay? And these are little places that put out the frequency all around the world. And it's interesting that they show you these things, like these buildings, like in Japan, where they clearly, in antiquity, used this as a form of technology to work with the electrical currents that were in our atmosphere at the time, the amplified electrical currents. Same thing here in France, right? Now available in every corner of the world. Now, that's interesting that they use that terminology, the corner of the world, right? I feel like that's something to chew on. I feel like that's something to think about. Where does that come from? The corner of the world, right? Some people would say, oh, that comes from a long time ago when people were dumb and they thought that the world had corners and that that we lived on a plane of existence, or maybe the world was square because they're stupid and they don't understand the spinning, wobbling, flying glob through nothing, following a giant fireball. But yeah, the four corners of the earth are in the center of the earth. Okay, there's 4 lands that come to a point or a corner at the center where you can go down into the hollow earth. That's the end. That's the westernmost extreme of this world, where it goes down into the west. East is up, west is down. And here they are too. Now you can see I also put all these advertisements all over these things too. You got Safeway right there. You got Kodak, McDonald's, Burger King, right? This is also reminiscent of Idiocracy, where the the ads are everywhere, basically, the commercials and all that stuff. By the way, that reminds me, this live stream is brought to you by Carl's Jr. All right, so we go back into the protagonist's house, and this is her master. It's not her dad. It's not a relative, not even an uncle or anything. And this is also him, right behind her. So this is the guy sitting there, oblivious, and he's controlling this, doing his dad work, right? He's her stepdad or whatever. And then he says, I don't care how many foster homes you broke out of. They're telling you right away they chose purposefully to make the protagonist of this movie an orphan. Harkens back to the orphan trains and all the children that every cycle seem to pop up out of nowhere, and we have an influx of orphans and children in this world that don't have parents. And if you pay attention in the movies, you'll start noticing nearly every single movie the protagonist is an orphan, usually. Or if they're not, they'll make them one. They'll kill their parents off, I promise you, okay? Here's some more of those centers that they put up all over the place. Look at all the wires that go to these things and stuff. This is basically what our world is turning into now. All this, 7-Up is up here at the top. It's hard to see the very top because of how I set this up. But anyways, let's move on. So we go to school now. What's school like in this alternative timeline, quote unquote, right? So you got this teacher, and she says, Post-War Robotic Internment Act. All the kids are putting on their little helmets, their VR helmets, so that they can learn in the virtual classroom. Like, why are you even in the actual classroom, right? But there's something else happening while they're distracting you with the shock of students that are all wearing this technology. I don't know if you guys picked up on it yet, but if you pay attention, remember, everything you see is a set. Every single thing you're looking at is a prop. It's propped up and put there to add context to the deeper meaning of what's being taught here, right? So this one girl right here, she says, hey, she said, put on your caster, put on your device. And then she responds and says, oh, I'm sorry, I have a condition where I can only live in reality. Let's back up and see if you caught that. Look behind her. You guys see that? Let me zoom in on this for a sec here. Not that. This. See these pictures on the wall? This is a dome inside of a building. This is a similar picture to the ones we were pointing out earlier, right? These are buildings. This is the Mayan calendar over here. I can't really tell what some of these other ones are. It looks like some structures or something. Let's see if I can zoom in even more, right? Right? All this stuff. And then right above it, what does it say? It says ancient technology, antiquitech at this school. They put that in there purposefully, but they didn't really put it in the foreground. In the background over here, it actually says that they have to write essays on ancient tech. See that? Antiquitech. I thought that was an interesting thing to put in there. So she's like, no, I can only live in reality. I'm not putting that on. So they all turn on their little VR headsets and stuff, and she gets sent to the principal's office where the principal realizes that her parents are dead. So she says, you know, neurotherapy could take some of that weight and give you a few hours to forget. They want to make you forget. They want to make you forget. Save your razor blades now. Not yet. That's from 21 Pilots, okay? Who also are sharing with you some pretty esoteric and profound guidance in the form of their lore, okay? But anyways, this is what our world has come to today, right? You got a problem? You have had a bad past? Are you broken? Therapy. Come talk to our therapist. They're going to have you talk to a human therapist because, one, they want all your secrets, okay? And I'm just going to speak from this. This is my path, okay? This is how I feel. But they're not there for you. These are not friends. You don't pay your friends to like be there for you. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I know it's popular. I know everybody in these days goes to therapy. Everybody's on drugs. Everybody, takes medicines and stuff like that. They want to put this on you so that you forget about your problems. Listen, your problems, your broken path that you've been down defines you, has made you the strong person that you can be in the future and that some of you are becoming right now. And that will help you in certain situations in the future. Hey, Benjamin, thank you so much. I super appreciate you. But they want to make you forget. They want to make you not just forget your problems and your issues and the things that you're experiencing and the fact that the world's crazy and nuts and everyone's monstrous and perverted and base and upside down and evil. They definitely want you to forget all that, just to bypass all that right away. But they also want you to forget the devastation that has happened to this world and that does happen to this world and therefore will again happen to this world in the near future. Because they don't want you to prepare for that. Because they want to go to the Garden of Eden. They don't want billions and billions of people rushing to safety where they're planning on going. To give you a few hours to forget. Go ahead and put on your Neurocaster. Now, let's look at the girl's stepdad. He finally takes his off because he's fed up, arguing with her through the robot. Takes off his Neurocaster. Let's take a look at his face. Jason Alexander. He actually plays a decent part. Look at this. He's worn this thing for so long that he's got like it's like hurt his face. He's got like scabs on his face. From wearing, look at this, dark circles under his eyes, scabs and stuff. I feel like a lot of people can probably relate. You know what I mean? Staring at the phones, doom scrolling. They have a word for that. They call it doom scrolling, right? Or actual VR helmets and stuff like that. This is our world today. And then he sees that there's this bot in the house. Now we're going to meet the bot. What would the state do to me if they found a bot in my house? And it's Kid Cosmo. There's actually a Kid Cosmo robot, comes into the house, does the whole C at the heart thing, and he knows the girl, right? I'll explain this in a minute. She says, you died, and now you're here. This is her brother in robot form. She doesn't know what's going on, and we don't yet either, unless you've seen the movie, right? Her brother died. Or she thought her brother died along with her parents in this car crash. And she doesn't know what happened to her brother. Her brother is now communicating to her through this robot, which is the moon, which is the apex dome. And she says, you died and now you're here. Are you a robot now? And he's like, no, I don't think so. It's his spirit that has been eaten by the moon or Pac-Man, however you want to see it. Okay. and he comes alive. It's also just plasma possession, and this is what happens in our world where the robots gain sentience, right? And she says, you're out there somewhere. Now, sometimes the movie is talking to you. Actually, I take that back all the time, okay? The movie's always talking to you. It's not talking to the protagonist. They're not having a personal conversation with each other and we get to eavesdrop. The whole message is for those who are listening and paying attention. Some of us, the lost tribe of the tree of life, okay? This is what I'm getting out of it. She says, you're out there. The real you is out there somewhere, right? So this is the seeker. She's going to become a seeker, okay? Or a truth seeker, right? How do I find you? She's looking for home. We're looking for home. Lots of you you feel out of place in the world as it is today out here in the Southlands. You know there's a paradise. You know there's you know that home should feel like you're at home, you know, peaceful, rejuvenated, nourished, loving. All these concepts that are not exhibited by most people in the world today out here in the Southlands. She says, how do I find you? Now listen, it's definitely talking to you, to me. It was talking to me personally. And those of us who share the same spirit, okay, it's talking to us, all right? How do I find you? How do I find the center place? How do I find paradise, Hyperborea, the Garden of Eden? How do I get home? What does the robot do? First and foremost, shows you the side of his head, which is important. They didn't have to build him like that, okay? It's just a prop for a movie. He points right at how to find home. Let's zoom in on this. Big fat finger pointing to the center. And then he says it again. Better hurry. There's trouble on the moon. That means the apocalypse is coming. The moon will open. Pac-Man will reappear. The Pac-Man or Squatter Man, Plasma Man, etc. Better hurry. Looks right at the camera. Looks right at you. Better hurry. Better do what you got to do. The apocalypse is coming. Get to the safety place. Get to the center of the maze. Jeez, man, this is insane. We can defeat the rock monster. So he can only talk in like cartoon quotes or whatever. But the rock monster is Mount Meru, okay? So every other cycle, Mount Meru becomes seen as an evil object when it's black and it's dark and the light is gone, etc. But whenever that light erupts out of Mount Meru, then Mount Meru is seen as the mother of the savior figure and something positive, and it actually changes color and turns white or shiny or whatever. She says center is all over the world. Where exactly are you? Now, center is, in the movie, how do I explain this? In real life, the center of the world at the North Pole, that is Hyperborea, is the Garden of Eden, okay? The inhabitants thereof, who lived for hundreds and hundreds of years during, you know, the Golden Age, they were forced out, okay? Atlantis sank, etc. When they were forced out, they're forced southwards. That's what I mean by the Southlands. That's every place on Earth that is not the Garden of Eden is the Southlands, all right? Those survivors left the center of the world and became nomadic. And they have, through just experience alone, right, enough knowledge to be able to take over the rest of the world quite quickly and quite easily, right? These became barbarians, Tartarians, man-ghouls, etc., and so on and so forth. The Great Chan, the leader, the Khan, the Kohens, etc., the priest kings, etc., and so on and so forth. She says center is all over the world. The people from the center have spread out all over the world and have taken control and now own BlackRock, which owns every company, right? Where exactly are you, right? So she's lost. She represents the lost tribes, which are the truth seekers who are trying to get back home. The solar system's gone haywire, says Cosmo. So he's trying to like actually talk to her through secret messages. She has to be intuitive and understand what he's really saying. The solar system's gone haywire is our world in the plasma apocalypse. So what do when they need to find their way? They look at a map, right? Which is what I like to do. Cartography, looking at the old maps of the old world whenever we had these phantom islands and lodestone mountains and stuff. And where do they need to go? Well, pretty close to the Four Corners area. You can see Colorado up here where I live, New Mexico, where I was born, actually. And they need to go specifically to this place called Tabletop. tabletop mountain, the flat mountain. This is the place. How do I describe this? Mount Meru is a type of this tabletop tower. Okay, Mount Meru is a tower. It's not like a mountain how you're used to seeing giant hills and stuff like that. It's a tower. It's like the Devil's Tower, actually. It's exactly like the Devil's Tower, except for it's split at the top and it's hollow on the inside. And that's why you have Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where people go to the Devil's Tower, which is a type of Mount Meru, and they just feel compelled to hurry and to get there because there's an event, there's something that's going to take place, and there's going to be this eye in the sky that shows up, and it looks like a UFO and all that stuff. Believe in yourself, he says to you, as they're instructing you to get to the tabletop mountain. She says, that's in the middle of the exclusion zone. And he says, you can do it. This is mind-blowing, like how obvious the message is here. It's to me. I don't know. It's, some people might just think I'm just stretching things or whatever. That's fine. You could, this is not for you. Okay, this is for me. This whole presentation is for me, for my kids, and for my loved ones, and for the lost tribe of the Tree of Life. That's in the middle of the exclusion zone, or they call it the X. That's in the middle of the exclusion zone. Tabletop mountain. Boom. Right there. The X is a prison for robots to not break out of. Right? It's a prison. And one day, the prisoners are going to break out of the earth. And they're going to rise to the surface. Most of you commonly have heard of this as Gog and Magog. Okay? There are giants. There are otherworldly creatures. Gigantic creatures. Insectoids, animal types, humans, etc., that are all down there right now enjoying a golden age. And they're aware of the plasma apocalypse. And they're aware that all their energy is going to come up here. And that their world will be like ours is today and it will suck. And they won't want to be here. Or they won't want to be down there. If they're wise, they'll leave. And they'll come up here to create a new home and stay in paradise. Right? Not only that, but there's going to be depressurization down within the earth, and some of them won't even have a choice, especially like bugs and stuff, gigantic. How does it say in the book of Revelation, the locusts, right? The locusts, they're gigantic bugs or whatever. They come right up. They're blown up into our world, okay? And they're going to flood into this world. I'm telling you right now. And it's the prison where the giants were kept, and this is where they're going to come out of. Okay, in this area, the whole Arctic area, there's all kinds of openings that go down into the hollow earth in this region, which is why your governments that are in the Southlands up here, specifically the main fighters is Russia, Siberia, Canada, United States, etc. Right on both sides of the Garden of Eden on the North Pole. They're all moving in right now. Pay attention to your news or the rumors. Okay. I don't really watch the news that much, but I listen, and they're all moving in on the Arctic right now as we speak, because they're getting ready for a war. Not with each other. I'll tell you that. They're not going to fight each other. They're going to go to war against other things. Anyways, this is the glyph also. This is the X, like in the movie. This is called the X, okay? And all the prisoners are going to escape from the X. They're all confined there right now. This is just some rock art petroglyphs that are showing you the reality of our world. Now, isn't this attractive? Isn't this fancy? This is what the people look like in the movie when they're on the beach or sweeping floors doing their robot work when their mind is partitioned and split in half and stuff. This is what you look like in reality. To me, at least, okay, and clearly to the people that made this movie. Let's just zoom in. Let's just soak this in for a moment, shall we? Okay? Put the technology down for a second, at least for a second, all right? And realize what it's doing to us. It's taking away our life, okay? You're already in an avatar. You're already in a robot body. You're already here in the world experiencing, right? Your spirit form is in here so that you can experience these things in the physical world. But these people, this is New Mexico, by the way. This is really what people look like in New Mexico, except for without the technology, okay? Trust me, especially in Albuquerque. But anyways, they just got this dude who's like, it's like it's a drug. basically. This guy's sitting on the side on the wall. He's just zoned out, zonked out. These people are zoned out and zonked out, right? This is the new drug, is technology. Now they zoom in on this. It's a Circle K, which I could get into. Should I? Okay, listen. There's a convenient store called Circle K. I'm going to tell you real quick the origin of Circle K. It wasn't always called Circle K. Okay, there was a guy that bought a convenience store that was called K's. Just K, as in a person named K. K's convenience store. He bought 3 of them. I'm going to let you understand the message, okay? He bought 3 of these K's stores, and he decided to rename it and put a circle around the K. There's a lot of stuff that's happening right there. Anyways, it shows you this particular thing, the stake pit. All right, this is also a play on words. The stake is the pole or the column or the beam or whatever. The pit is the bottomless pit that's right underneath it, which is Mount Meru and the entrance into the underworld. Now they're on their way to the robot paradise or the robot prison. Every other cycle, it's one or the other. And as you can see, they have to go through the desert. Okay, right now, that desert is full of water. It's called the Arctic Ocean. But all that water will be removed. The seas will be no more, as it says in the book of Revelation. And the Arctic Ocean will be gone, and it'll be replaced with the desert. Also, you got stuff like this, which I'm assuming they didn't really explain these in the movies, but they're set up all over the place. They act as some sort of parameter or some sort of security. It's the all-seeing eye, basically. Okay, this is the Death Star. This is the moon. This is the real moon, not the light in the sky. But this is the apex dome, okay, with the red eye and everything. All right, so now here's the walls. This is the walls to that prison. This is also the surrounding walls to paradise. Okay, paradise, the Garden of Eden, is surrounded by massive cliffs, gigantic, huge columns that shoot up into the air that you can't climb. Okay, unless you find a naturally occurring staircase or something, but that's not going to happen. It's very unlikely you're going to be able to scale those walls. Now we got Chris Pratt. You know, the Jurassic Park guy or whatever, and he's in this truck, and he knows how to get into this prison because he likes to sell black market goods and stuff. So he drives this truck that has a picture of this cow on it. Let me show you the cow, because the cow is us, okay? And it says, keep running. You can't read all of it right here, but the picture says, keep running, with the cow, with the X's over its eyes, right? Like the old-fashioned cartoons. I fought the law and the law won. That's the song they're listening to right now. Right? This is crazy. Anyway, so he pulls up. All right? And you can see where he is. He's just outside of the X or whatever. And he's got this little shack or farm or house or whatever it is, right? It's actually a mining facility. So inside of this abandoned house or whatever is tunnel systems that go down, that have been forgotten, that go onto the other side of those walls. And I talk about this, you know, quite often, and I let people know there's tunnels that go down, that go into paradise. Okay. If you try to climb those walls, you're probably going to die. You're probably not going to make it if you try to climb the cliffs of insanity. Okay. You can, it's possible, and you can't fly in there or anything because the electromagnetics, you know, they'll mess you up. You can't even, it would be difficult to get a hot air balloon in there because of the constant electrical current that goes around paradise, which creates wind and stuff that'll probably throw you off course anyway. So you have to go through the tunnel systems in order to get into paradise, right? Until the walls come crashing down. That's a different story. So now he's underground. And he says, why don't you be a dear and give me an inventory of those Cabbage Patch Kids? So he's got all these yesteryear 90s, 80s throwback memorabilia. And they don't have them anymore because of that war. So he sells these black market goods or whatever. And he specifically mentions the Cabbage Patch Kids. So just like there was a shout out to the orphans, right? The orphan trains and all that stuff. And the protagonists being, you know, without parents or whatever. Here's another shout out to pod people, essentially. People that are grown instead of, you know, naturally occurring or whatever. That's what the Cabbage Patch Kids are to me. This is also a version of like Mount Meru here. This is actually a Cabbage Patch Kids hospital. I don't know if you guys knew that there was one, but yeah, there's a whole Cabbage Patch Kids hospital. This is what Cabbage Patches actually look like, or tend to look like here in the United States, or in some places. Let me show you some in Japan and what they look like. This somebody put this on the internet. This cabbage field in Japan looks more like an alien egg's nest. Look at what these cabbages can look like in different parts of the world. And then somebody actually put a picture of the girl from Alien with their flamethrower up here in the corner. Right? Because the aliens are born out of these little pods or whatever. They're pod people. It's all a shout out to Invasion of the Body Snatchers, pod people, Clone Wars, all that type of stuff. Now, this guy, he's like the main robot guy that goes around killing all the robots, rounding people up. He's basically the police, okay? And he says, raise those hands. And so they do the little squatter man, right? The symbol for peace. They raise their hands. And then they're trying to get away. And they get into this mine cart. And she says, should we just run at this point? Because he's going through all these keys. Yeah, that's a question that they're posing to you. Should we just run at this point, right? Should we just go? And they're inside of this mine cart. They're trying to get away. So this is them taking these secret tunnels into paradise, basically. And as they're leaving, Chris Pratt gives them the squatter man goodbye. Oh, this part cracks me up. So he gives them this little squatter man goodbye, this little plasma symbol goodbye. You know, as he's going into paradise. There's so much symbolism here, but I can relate to that. Screw you to the Southlands, right? The robot guy, the technology, this is back to our modern world. This is what it's going to come to. This guy shoots at him with a plasma gun that shoots out this red plasma, ionized hydrogen, right? I mean, there's other gases that also light up red or magenta. But it's just the symbolism of what we're seeing here, right? So this plasma chases them, right? Throughout these caves and stuff like that. This is also depicted in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Whenever Gilgamesh, he has to go through these dark tunnels in order to get into this place of paradise to learn the secret of how to live forever, like the gods do, right? Anyways, let's continue on. Now, they get outside of this tunnel and the whole thing collapses. There's this whole cave in, and now they're stuck inside of this robot prison. And one of the first things we see is that there's like this graveyard of robot rubber duckies. They're all over the place too. And you can see all these robots have that same circular, the doom shape in all of them, because the doom shape is what brings them to life. Okay. The doom shape allows that red plasma to come in and it makes them all sentient and they can act and turn on all by themselves. So we've got this ducky graveyard. Why do ducks represent plasma? Let me show you. This is alleged video footage that I have here on my channel whenever I did a compilation of plasmoids, Foo Fighters, and whatnot. This dude's sitting at his car watching this storm. This huge bolt of lightning erupts, and all of a sudden you've got these just balls of light that are moving back and forth. Pay attention to the shapes that these balls of light take. They're not just balls, okay? Oftentimes they look like camels or bunny rabbits or duckies, rubber duckies, yellow, like you might see right there, right? I mean, it all depends on your perception filter and how you interpret these things and what you relate them to or whatever. But this is the war that people see up in the heavens, up in the skies, as the plasma is going back and forth, you know, interacting with the magnetic fields and electrical currents of the other plasma, right? So that's the rubber duck symbolism, and you'll see it all over the place in the movies, right? Now these are the walls of Eden. They're stuck inside. There was this cave in. Oh, here's some more of those rubber duckies with the doom shape on the middle. The doom shape is also the bullseye, so they're pretty oblate or obtuse about the symbolism. Okay, they put an actual bullseye on the rubber ducky, like at a shooting range. You know, you would see the ducks or whatever, right next to the doom shape, which is I'm assuming that's like, you know, where the robots get their power or whatever, but it's the circle within the circle and the X through that, right? Which is just a reflection of the land below it, like we talked about. So there's the rubber duckies, boom. They're inside of paradise where you're going to have an influx of plasma and electromagnetics, rubber duckies, etc. That's also where all that stuff from Easter comes from, all the Easter symbolism, rabbits and ducks and all that stuff, and eggs. All that stuff has to do with the same things. Now they see this weird looking robot that's like scavenging and ripping parts off of other robots and sticking it on himself. And he says these are called scavs or scavenger bots, right? And they're in the post-apocalyptic world, there will be humans, okay, that are also scavengers. There will be humans that will go around eating other humans, okay? Just because it's the apocalypse doesn't mean all the good people automatically survive. Just because you're good, you get to survive or whatever. You know, there's going to be leftover bad people too. And there's going to be cannibals and stuff like that. So you might want to be careful. Now, let's take another deep dive. This is going to be interesting. Pay attention to this particular brand of automobile that they decided to have. This robot, all the protagonists get inside and this giant robot starts carrying them through the desert, okay? Now, let's take a look. What kind is this? You might recognize it's the Volkswagen or the Volkswagen or Volkswagen, right? So there's a few things I want to point out here with this whole Volkswagen. First of all, let's go back to the Circle K reference that I made earlier. He says, where are your parents anyway? She says, none of your business. He goes, kid, kid, kid. Right? And then we go back to the Volkswagen after he says that. Look at the symbol. Now, this is also a Mandela effect. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that many people don't remember that there was a little line separating the V from the W. So that's definitely something that's happened with our memories or reality or timelines or whatnot. But the Volkswagen is supposed to be the triple Vav, okay? Vav is the number 6 in Hebrew and ancient Phoenician. It's 666 in the form of a logo. All right. That's not even the icing on the cake. We just started with Volkswagen. Okay. So you've got the V and then the double V, which is the double U or U, which is exactly what a W is. It's just two V's or two U's together. And that makes the 666 symbol with a circle on it. Right. The 3 6s are the 3 tent pegs or the 3 poles that shoot up from the ground in the form of the anode, the cathode, and Mount Meru at the middle. And they spiral their way up to the heavens. And it's encircled, as it should be, because it represents a place. Now, did you know Hitler made that car, the Volkswagen Bug specifically, actually? So he commissioned Porsche to create the people's car. This is so interesting. So if we go back to, right, 666, Volkswagen, it's actually folks, like old folks, people would say, like the old folks home. That word folks is the same as Volks in German. Okay, it's the Volkswagen or the wagon of the people or the car of the people, right? The people's car. And he wanted to make this people's car, the car for his peoples or whatever, right? And I'm not saying good, bad, evil, good, none of that. Okay, I'm not siding with anything because I see like I'm my own. I have my own perspectives aside from all of the traditional beliefs or whatever. But check this out. This is the origin. This is the growth of the logo for Volkswagen. So you're used to seeing this one. Before that, it looked like that. Before that, it looked like that one over there. My hand doesn't go that far. But before that, it looked like this one over here. Now, does this look similar? I mean, does this look familiar? Right? You've seen this on many Native American glyphs, rock formations, petroglyphs, and whatnot. If you turn it upside down, it creates an M with a volcano underneath it. Meru, as in Mount Meru, 33, right? This is an ad. It says upside down navigation, which is, sort of a Stranger Things themed ad, right? For navigating the upside down or the underworld. Now, the main bad guy in the movie, these are the doctors that work for him, the business people that work for him, and that the girl's brother, Christopher is his name. Now we're going to learn where he really is. He's been kidnapped. So his spirit was eaten by Pac-Man or eaten by the moon or whatever, but his body is somewhere in this facility in Center, right? His name's Christopher. Christopher is basically the same thing as Christ, the light bringer, the light of the world, etc., and so on and so forth. The Shining One, okay? All those connections. Now the bad guys meet up with each other and they have this whole scene. They're in this virtual world so they can defy the laws of physics and stuff, which is going to happen one of these days too, when the atmospheric conditions change. And they start walking on water, right? But these are the guys that use technology to emulate Christ-like abilities or God-like abilities, where they're walking on water, right? One of these days when the technology is taken away, these people will be useless and weak and have no power because they've completely relied upon technology instead of their own abilities that are considered fringe and pseudoscience and stuff like that. All right, so continuing on. Now they get to like this sort of paradise. It's a mall, okay? And this is where all the robots have decided to make their little base camp, and it's called Blue Sky Acres with a blue star right up there on the top. That is the blue star Kachina, okay? One of these days there will be a blue star. Okay, it's the sun. I'm just going to tell you right now, okay? The sun is going through a color spectrum shift right now, and it's going to turn blue. And when it turns blue, the sunlight will be extremely hot, and it will start burning everything. And then it will leave the northern tropic one of these summer times, and it'll make its way to the North Pole, where it will settle over the throne of God and declare itself to be God. And it will cause desolation wherever it goes. All right, so that's just, many books of the Bible I just summed up in about 10 seconds for you. Blue Sky Acres. So this is like a play on for paradise, right? All the robots go here, they gather here. He says, I command this gate to rise. And there's a gate into paradise. Christopher, we go back to Christopher. This is his body. They're showing him he was in a coma or whatever. And then they took his body, they kidnapped him, and they hook him up to a machine because they realize that through his mind somehow, he can allow the technology for this Neurocaster that he's invented. So without him, without this child, that Neurocaster technology would not exist. Or without this technology, if you don't see, him as a person, but you see him as representing the blue beam. I don't want to get too deep. Now, this is the doctor who was helping the bad guys out, but he defected and now he's good and he wants to help Christopher. And he looks at Christopher and he says, oh my God. Pay attention to when they say, oh my God in the movie, and pay attention to what they're looking at, what they're referencing, because they're telling you symbolically that's symbolizing God. Okay. That's actually his God. You might recognize this guy from Goonies, by the way. This is Data, right? With his slick shoes. All right. There was no way I could get Chris out of center. Now, this is going to get more profound. Now they're talking about the blue beam. Okay, the blue beam is always personified as wanting to leave this world, that it's stuck in this world, and it continuously just reincarnates into this world, and it's trapped here, right? Even though its spirit can actually leave, like I talked about earlier. So they want to get Chris out of center, right? Or to spread that vibration throughout the rest of the world, or to share that spirit, that energy, that Jesus is probably the best example, but that Christ-like mentality, energy, vibration, good vibes, whatever, with everybody else. They want to get it out of the center. I established my tiny connection between Chris. I'm trying to do my Data voice now. I established my tiny connection between Chris and the outside network. His mind could not escape. Hold on, I can't do the accent and break down the movie at the same time. So he established a tiny connection between Chris, which represents the light of the world, and the outside network, which is all of us that live in the Southlands. Okay, there's a tiny connection between us and that light of the world. His mind could escape. I heard about what you were building, which is this robot paradise in the desert. So I implanted the location in his mind. And I told him to head to Blue Sky. So what the movie is saying here, this is how I interpret it, is all of us, or some of us, I should say, have an energetic signature that resonates with this light of the world, with this beam of energy that comes up out of the world, with good, pure, wholesome, life-giving instead of life-taking, right? Some people take life so that they can live longer. Others give it away because they're abundant with life. Right? They have a fountain of it welling up within them. And those of us in the Southlands, those of us who no longer live in paradise or at the tree of life, have a seed of that tree in us that empowers us, that literally defines us. And that's why we're looking for it. That's why you're looking for it. You're looking for that tree, or for the paradise once more. Okay. And therefore, we will gather together and we'll be with family and like-minded people once more. And it'll be a happy day. I heard about what you were building, so I implanted the location in his mind. The location is in our mind. It's up here. We can figure this out. These things will be reverse engineered in this time of confusion and chaos. And there will be a great fall in the morality and the intelligence of humanity. However, right along with that, during the amplification of evil, good is also amplified. It's just that good is the remnant. There's hardly any good left, but the good that is left is also amplified. So there's a rise in prophets. There's a rise in seers. There's a rise in, and there's also a danger to that because there's evil people out there that will take advantage of this rise in goodness. And you'll have a rise of cults like all over the place as well. So be careful. All right. So this guy's following them. He's basically the robot hunter. He's trying to stop them and stuff. And he meets up with Data. I'm just going to call him Data. And he says, you're not allowed to kill living things, are you? And he says, that's right. I put metal down. So he's only allowed to kill robots, right? Him, at home on his couch, which is really what he's doing, okay? He says he has a conscience. He doesn't want to kill humans. That's murder. So he kills robots because he doesn't see them as living beings. And this guy knows that. So he says, you're not allowed to kill living things, are you? And he says, if you want to get to them, you'll have to kill me, right? Because he's standing there with a weapon. And he's like, well, since you can't kill me, I guess you're not going to get those guys. But the main bad guy in the movie, that bald guy, he puts on one of those deals and he busts out his gun and just blows Data out of the water and kills Data immediately, right? And then this guy looks over at him and he's like, Skate, what'd you do? And he's like, you're a murderer, man. You just murdered somebody. And that guy didn't even care because the ends justified the means. This guy shot him. And that's a robot mentality, okay? That's a left brain, left-hand path mentality, is that the ends justify the means. I don't care what happened. I don't care how many lives were lost. You know what I mean? Is how these people think. That's an insect mentality, okay? And that's abundant in the world today. I don't want to go off on a tangent and complain. Anyways, let's continue. So this guy realizes it. He's like, man, you just murdered somebody. You're a murderer, man. And he's like, you had me hunt a boy? Because this guy had no idea that the robot had a spirit of a human inside of it. And now he's calling this robot a boy. So this guy right here, over the course of the movie, starting to have a change of perspective on what he considers to be life or consciousness. This guy over here, what was his name? Ethan? Ethan's Gate, right? He says, who cares? Like, the ends justify the means. I'm going to get rich. I'm going to have control. I'm going to take the charge away from others, which is life away from others, and take charge. And I'm going to be the boss. I'm going to be the man. And who cares? The man in black says. So there's this huge war between the robots. They all come together. Mr. Peanut's like the leader of all of them. There's giant Titan robots and stuff versus all the humans that are living vicariously through the robots. They're all fighting each other in this huge war. There's another one of those doom-shaped eyeballs in the background. And now this guy comes face to face with the leader of the robots, Mr. Peanut. And he says, all those bots down. And you're still fighting? How come? So now he's starting to, like, instead of just killing the robot immediately, he's reasoning with it. He's asking it, what's your motivation here? Mr. Peanut, who also represents like the torus shape, like whenever you shoot a beam of energy into, how do I explain this? When you have a beam of plasma that shoots in a straight line, it will eventually collapse in on itself at what's known as a Z-pinch, where its own magnetic field pulls it in at the middle. So you get this Mr. Peanut kind of shape. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. And Mr. Peanut says, oh, let me back up. He says, all those bots down and you're still fighting? Why? What's the reason? And he says, freedom's worth any cost. And he says, even dying? And he kind of threatens him, right? He's like, you're willing to die for this? And Mr. Peanut, the robot, and this guy is going to kill him because he doesn't think he's alive. Mr. Peanut says, we'd have to be alive to die. And this guy's like, huh. I finally met someone less human than a robot. And he puts his gun down. He walks away and he decides, I'm not killing. Remember, he can't kill living things. So now he realizes, damn, these robots are really alive. They're really actually alive like I'm alive. You know what I mean? It's just profound to me. I think it's just mind-boggling. I like stuff like this. I like Westworld. I like the whole question of consciousness and you know, what is considered life, what is considered consciousness, what is considered, you know what I mean? Because I personally, I think everything's alive. I don't believe in death. I don't believe in inanimacy or inanimate objects. I just believe that there's different speeds and frequencies and stuff like that, but it's all alive to me. So he shuts down and he takes off his little helmet back on his couch, and he just decides he's not participating in this, right? It's evil. Now, they go into Christopher's mind, okay? And inside of Christopher's mind, which is this virtual world, she gets to talk with her brother once more, who is lying in bed in a coma in real life. And he's talking with her, and he says, I haven't felt anything in 3 years, but out there with you, I felt everything. And it was awesome. It's not a kid in a movie that's saying this. It's that tree of life so far away that's been gone for so long, living through us, our decisions, our lives, our paths. And it's awesome. Now, notice the Christmas tree in the background, okay? This is a virtual world made up in this kid's mind in a movie. Christmas has nothing to do with the movie. This is what I call a Christmas Day catastrophe movie. Why? Because this kid, Christopher, is the light of the world, which erupts on Christmas Day or the solstice, okay? Every other cycle, okay? We got one cycle that happens during the summer solstice, another cycle that happens during the winter solstice. And keep in mind also, you can watch my Plasma Apocalypse playlist for more information on this, but the seasons shift, okay? So what you think is Christmas time now, during the next cycle, will be about 3 months off, okay? And it'll be an equinox at that time. Anyways, so they purposefully show you it's a Christmas Day catastrophe movie or Christmas apocalypse, etc. All the robots get together as there's this heartfelt speech that is being given to you as a reminder. And the girl is talking. She says, and things fell apart. Life really sucked. And maybe, for a little while, the Neurocasters helped you to forget that. Kids are all taking them off. All this technology stopped working because her brother actually died, or the light retracted, basically. And so none of these Neurocasters work any longer. So people are having to deal with reality and coming back into the real world. And she says, maybe for a little while, these Neurocasters helped you to deal with reality. We got so used to it that we thought that's what real life was, right? Like right now, watching me on the internet, there's a semblance of real life, right? But you're looking at a screen right now. You're looking at technology. You're not really here in my bedroom. I got carpet down here. I'm sitting on a chair. I've got a microphone. I've got, there's water in my house. There's air in my lungs, but I can't hug you. You know what I mean? Like, I would if I could, but I can't, okay? You're just looking at technology right now. And sometimes we can use that to benefit us, and everything in moderation, right? She says, we got so used to it that we thought that's what real life was. And then this Jason Alexander comes out. He's like, you know, he's not used to seeing actual light. You know, he's used to staring at the screen in the dark or whatever. So all these people are waking up. She says, real life, it's contact. It's you and it's me. We're flesh and bone. Yeah, but we're also electricity. Look around. There's someone near you right now. A real person in real life. They're real and alive. And they need you as much as you need them. And if there isn't, if you don't have anyone, you come find us. And that's my message to you. If you don't have anyone, if this is how you think, if these are the things that you're interested in beyond how was your day, how was work, how's the weather, what's going on, what are you going to do, what time are you going to bed, and you need more, and you want to contemplate the mysteries of the world and the nature of reality and who we are, and smile sometimes and crack jokes and have a good time and also dive down into the rabbit hole while staying grounded, that's what my channel is. It's a place for that. And you're welcome here. She says, because we're starting over. It's a reset. We're going to do it right this time. And that's it. Well, that's like, These are some notes on my audio. I was trying to fix it up. I forgot to delete that. That is our movie for today. Also a little nice message at the end and woven throughout the rest of the presentation, if you picked up on that. I hope you enjoyed yourself and had a good time. I hope that you enjoyed and made some friends in the chat. C3PO's Golden Calf. Hey, I see you in the chat. I bet you loved that little VW part. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to take off. I'm going to roll the credits to show my appreciation for all who support my work. And until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.